All right, man, peace. So now this is probably the last segment that I'll do a video about on this episode of Sports Center with Michael and Jamel. They had a very interesting interview with Laila Ali, the daughter of Muhammad Ali, the boxing great. She's going to cover various topics during the interview. They're going to ask her a series of questions, and I'm going to chime in along with her answers. And, I'm just going to touch on a few things in regards to her that I think are very important.
It's now time for our main event, Laila Ali.
No, if you don't want to call me the best, you can call it what you want to. I am the top in women's boxing. They know that I'm undefeated. What do I see when I look in the mirror? A very beautiful young lady that can whoop you.
As you can see, she was very good during her boxing career. I know she boxed at a time when women's boxing was at its elementary stages. And a lot of these chicks really just were not skilled enough to get in the ring with her. I mean, obviously, boxing is in her blood. Her father was the most physically gifted heavyweight to ever fight. Probably had the greatest feat of any fighter, period. Not even just heavyweight, but any fighter, period. I mean, he was fighting at his peak at 210 pounds and could move for 15 rounds. All right. But to me, as you listen to this interview, you're going to see that she has a very, very strong liberal black female bent. And to me, quite honestly, most of her boxing career, which is based off of her penis envy of her father, like I said, feminism is really the I wish I was a man movement. All right, but we'll cover that as we go along.
She can also write pretty well. She's got a new book coming out January of next year called Food for Life. With us now on the eve of the one-year anniversary of the world saying goodbye to the greatest is the great Laila Ali. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
What's the last year been like for you? What have you processed or come to realize in your father's passing that maybe you hadn't even when you had him on earth?
I think that as she's gotten older, she's realized the power that he had from his spirit, the energy that he was able to generate that she tried to compete with at one time. You'll find that most young females, they try to compete with men. And then they get to a certain age where they start to realize, Laila Ali, she's probably about 40 years old now. Still very attractive for her age. But as these women get older, they start to realize the folly of trying to compete with men. At least some of them do. Some of them realize the folly. Some of them never do. I mean, which is a curse. But I think that now she realizes that she's gotten older, that even though she probably always loved her father, she tried to compete with him, as most black women are trained to do. And now she's experienced enough to realize that how foolish that was, and what her father really meant to a lot of different populations on the earth, but specifically what he meant to so-called black people, particularly the so-called black man. Right. Let me also say I don't agree with the doctrine that Ali embraced, but the sentiment. The brother was extremely courageous. There's no doubt about that.
People ask me that question, and it's crazy because being that he had Parkinson's for almost 35 years, I pretty much had prepared myself for the idea that he would pass at one time. And we're all going to pass at some point, right? But just with his health obviously declining as he got older, I had really gotten ready for it. But when it actually happened, it was crazy, because it's like, wow, he's no longer here. And just with the history and everything that we know about him, it's like I prepared myself for my father being a part of history and no longer being here for us. And really, I just always think about how we want to preserve his legacy.
He was a part of history well before he expired. Way before he expired. He's probably, as far as athletes are concerned, he's probably the most renowned athlete of the modern day era, even more than Jordan. All right, just in regards to how he was revered by all so-called races of people.
But I mean, it's never easy, obviously, waking up and not having him here to be able to call and to hug and to kiss and to smell him and, all of that. But it gives us comfort in knowing that he's in a better place now. So, I mean, like I said, it wasn't like it happened suddenly. So It gave us a little bit of, I guess it made it a little easier.
Yeah, I saw you smiling at some of the photos that we had here in the background. What was going through your mind as you're looking at him holding you as a baby and you being next to him? What were you thinking?
My father and I were so much alike, but we're also very different. And I'm the youngest girl out of, his 7 girls. And my father...
Out of the 7 girls that have been officially recognized as his daughters. Believe me, Ali probably had about 30 children. All right. I'm surprised that more haven't come out of the woodwork. But he was getting it in back in his day, man. That guy, like I think I've stated in the past, there's stories about him. Before the first Norton fight, he had an orgy with 7 chicks at one time. When he was over there in Manila, he slept with every girl that was on his floor. All right. And after the fight, Manila, him and Bob Arum and the guys in his entourage, they had a big orgy in the Philippines. And he used to go back. He used to go back to the Playboy Mansion in L.A. Him and Hugh Hefner were friends. And he used to have orgies there with Hugh Hefner at the Playboy Mansion. That's why if you guys ever watched the Rumble in the Jungle when he defeats George Foreman, at the end of that fight, when he's in the post-fight interview, he shouts out Hugh Hefner and calls him his friend. Hugh Hefner, by the way, is a major mind control handler. All right, he was the first guy to handle Norma Jean Baker, or as you know her, Marilyn Monroe.
To bump heads a lot. So I was just remembering, some of the conversations that we had. I remember when I moved out the house, 18, moving in with a boyfriend. He had a problem with that. You did? Oh, yeah. Okay. We got into it. It was like, look, I pay my bills. You don't pay my bills. You didn't go.
You see how she sits on the show, happy to relive and recite times where she was rebellious against her father. That's why I stated that whole boxing thing, that was just an attempt for her to show him that she could do whatever he could do. But he was powerless to come against it, even though he disagreed with it, because, and this is one of the things that brothers have to understand when you embrace any type of wisdom. It's going to be an even greater vexation in your spirit when you embrace wisdom, because it's going to become even more apparent to you the bullshit that people do on purpose just to try to provoke you. That's why they say that ignorance is bliss. Because when you don't know shit, you let a lot of things slide. All right? When you embrace any form of a doctrine that encompasses or that entails wisdom, is even more of a vexation. I saw an interview that Ali had in Newcastle, England back in 1977, where he detailed how his second wife, Belinda, after she left him, and took the children that she had with him, she purposefully taught the children to call the new man in her life daddy, just to purposefully try to demean and denigrate Ali. So the stuff. All right, so now this clip is in reference to what I was saying about Ali. Ali's going to come out and tell you out of his own mouth that how his kids call another man daddy. And you could tell, even though he hides it in a joke, you could tell he's a little hurt by it, or he's really hurt by it.
Even your children are not yours. If you think I'm lying, your wife is not yours. You die and come back a year later and go slip in your bedroom and see if your wife is by herself. See?
She might not have been by herself before you died.
You don't own your wife. I divorced my wife. You may have read about it. And my 4 children, they call another man daddy now. They don't see me no more. You don't own your children. You don't own your family. So what am I saying?
And that's the point that I've made on other videos as well, for the so-called black man. When you behind enemy lines, you don't own anything, man. All right? And even Ali understood it. But like I said, Ali was a man that had a certain level of understanding. All right? That's why he was able to kind of take it in stride, because he confided in a higher power. All right. But let's get back to the other video with Laila Ali. That the so-called that the modern day woman does to try to demean or denigrate the man, that's been going on since the early to mid 70s, since the start of the feminist revolution or feminist movement. All right. And also, let me say, Ali's second wife, Belinda, she was supposedly a so-called Muslim woman raised in the Nation of Islam faith. But after she left Ali, because she got mad at Ali for taking another wife, she left Ali and she tried to buddy up with Jane Fonda, a white woman in Hollywood, who she thought was going to help her get into Hollywood. And Jane Fonda, by the way, is a monarch child as well, sex kitten. That's why she was in Barbarella and a lot of those other sexually suggestive movies that were groundbreaking in their day. But anyway, back to the topic. Ali's former wife thought that Jane Fonda was going to take her under her wing and help her get into Hollywood. She got her one role and then just casted her aside. And Ali's second wife, Belinda, ended up poor. I believe that she was a porter in a hotel until recently, until Ali passed, and she got the inheritance money. All right. So a lot of these things that a lot of you brothers out there go through with these women, it's not even a matter of how famous you are, because Ali even went through it. And you see his daughter sitting up here acting proud that she was able to rebel against her father and move in with a guy at 18 years old and be disobedient. And she's going to list even more ways that she was disobedient towards him. This is why I prefaced the video saying that this whole thing right now is really just her using him once again to perpetuate her own fame, because she was nowhere for a while until after he died, and then she hopped back on television. All right. Not saying that she does not love him. I'm sure that she does. But, you know, she's an opportunist. I'll put it like that.
I'm judging me, and we went through all of that, and I wasn't Muslim. He was. That was a big issue. You know, his youngest daughter telling him at like 9 years old or whatever age I was, like, I don't want to be Muslim. And that was a problem.
No, you didn't tell him shit. Your mother did no longer want it to be a so-called Muslim, and you jumped on that because you got influenced by her. Right? Ali's third wife, Veronica Porsche, you know, a very attractive young woman that he met while he was training to fight George Foreman. That's who he ended up leaving Belinda for, or that's who he took as a second wife, and Belinda got upset and left him. That ended up being Laila Ali's mother. As soon as Ali and Veronica Porsche divorced, I think in the mid-'80s, because of Ali still sleeping around, that's when she departed from the so-called Nation of Islam faith. And, of course, Laila departed with her, because the children are going to follow after the mother. All right. That's why you brothers have to be very, very careful, these women that you inseminate. That's why I harp on that. All right. You brothers, you meet these females, they're nice to you for 3 months and you want to skeet up in them. These broads, you got to vet these broads, man. You got to test them. Because these, they will put on an act for months, for years, if need be. All right. So you have to watch yourself before you make those type of errors. All you have to do is use Ali as an end sample. He didn't have, this guy is probably the most popular man in the world in the mid 70s and mid 80s. And he got a 9-year-old girl telling him what she's not going to do. All right. But he knew he had to go along with the game. He knew he had to just go along with the game plan because, like I said before, brothers, the so-called black woman is not behind enemy lines. Only you are. All right. This whole boxing thing that Laila did, even though she was talented at it, all that was to try to get some of the stardom and the acclaim that she saw her father had. That's all. It was just a cry and a plea for his attention and for the attention of the world, because she was jealous of what came natural to him. And you'll see that so many times over and over again with the so-called liberal black woman. She's constantly trying to compete with the man.
And then when I wanted to start boxing, he was just like, he didn't want me to do it. Didn't believe women should fight. And I did it anyway. And then I changed it.
You see, she's constantly bragging about how she rebelled against him. She's spending the majority of the interview bragging about how rebellious she was. And she's supposedly married. So her man, Curtis Conway, he has to be a simp. All right. You didn't convince, and she's talking about she convinced him to accept women boxing. You never convinced him. He just was wise enough to know that the times were changing and that he didn't have the power to stop it. So he just went along with the flow. Right. Ali understood things very, very well. All you have to do is watch his old interviews. He understood the nature of the woman, not just intuitively, but based off of what he was taught by Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X and a lot of the other teachers in the Nation of Islam, who, even though I don't adhere to that doctrine, that's a rock worshiping religion, they had a lot of wisdom that they got from reading the Bible, from the scriptures, that they applied into everyday life. One of them being knowledge and wisdom on the woman. All right. And the Bible teaches you about the nature of the woman. All right. All throughout the scriptures, particularly in Proverbs and in Ecclesiasticus. Right. For those of you who have a King James 1611 Bible, the Nation of Islam, they used to read all that stuff. They understood that. And Laila Ali, she exhibits all those traits. She's just a jealous, she's just a woman. I can't even say she's a jealous woman because that's a redundancy. Women by nature are jealous. All right. And she showed that with her father, even though she loved him. But, you know, she fell prey to all these different spirits that will jump on the woman when she's not kept under heavy moderation. But she's here bragging about how she rejected Islam but at 9 years old. You don't even know what the hell you believe at 9 years old. Your mother rejected Islam and then you went along with it because your mother only acted like a Muslim to get with Ali when she was young because she was drawn in by his fame. All right. That's all that was about.
About that. So, you know, just all how he supported me no matter what and showed me love no matter what. So that's what was going through my head, to be honest.
Speaking of button heads, you know, Sunday, is the 50th anniversary of the legendary Ali Summit in Cleveland. And that photo was so iconic, surrounded by all those influential athletes and activists and community leaders.
I covered this in a video already. This whole thing was a big charade and a big sham. All right. They try to push this thing like all these guys came and had Ali's back. I covered this in the video with Bob Arum that he did when he was on the Skip Bayless show, Undisputed. Bob Arum came out and said that he paid most of these guys to appear and to try to convince Ali to not go against the military because why? Bob Arum wanted to continue making money having Ali fight. So he knew that he couldn't tell Ali, you know, being the so-called enterprising Caucasian Jew that he is, you know, he understood that he couldn't go up to Ali and tell him not to go against the government because it would look like he's being the white devil. So what he did was he paid all these famous black athletes to appear at this function and tried to dissuade Ali from coming against the U.S. government and coming against the draft. All right. And they failed. All right. They tried to grill Ali and he responded back in a way that showed them that he had a high level of conviction in his beliefs and they had to back down. But these guys, they wasn't coming at him on some pro-black tip. These guys were enterprising. They were, you know, they were the liberal blacks of their day. Guys like Bill Russell and Jim Brown and Kareem, they get deified in the modern day time. They were the liberal blacks of their day. They were, you know, they were just following, you know, the game plan. And I'm not trying to say that they were not sincere in their beliefs and that they didn't mean well. But it wasn't on some rebellious shit. It wasn't on some revolutionary shit. They had money in their pocket from Bob Arum, and they were trying to stop Ali. They were trying to dissuade him from coming against the draft. All right.
Or what have you. But as much as that's a legendary and a part of folklore, it wasn't initially there to support your father. There were many people there trying to convince him to change his anti-Vietnam stance and his draft stance. Ultimately, they ended up getting behind him. What else did he tell you about the Ali Summit?
Him and I never really had a whole lot of conversations about that, but...
Of course not, because you wasn't interested in that. You wasn't interested in that at all. All right? The thing that mostly... The conversation that you and him mostly probably had was you trying to rebel against him and him getting exasperated, but understanding that he didn't have the power to stop your bullshit. All right? You wasn't sitting down really trying to inquire about his life. Right, you saw the fame that he had as you got older, and you wanted some of that, so you took up boxing. You wasn't really interested in his history, like, you know. So at least I give her credit for honestly saying that they never had a conversation on that.
You know that you know, when you're the first one to do something and people don't always necessarily understand it, they're not going to support you. And I know that Jim Brown and Kareem, once they really had a conversation with my dad behind closed doors and like gave him those hard questions and he answered him and they really understood like this guy is for real and they saw where he was coming from, then they supported him publicly. But there were a lot of people who didn't, obviously, and there still are people who now, even to this day, didn't love my dad.
Guys like Joe Louis and Jackie Robinson, both 33rd degree Masons, by the way. Jackie Robinson, a black, so-called black asset of the Rockefellers. All right, he came out publicly coming against Ali. So did Joe Louis. So did Floyd Patterson, who was a so-called Catholic. All right, and in my opinion, Floyd Patterson was a victim of molestation from Cus D'Amato, allegedly. But I'll leave that alone for now. Just like I believe that Mike Tyson was most likely a victim of molestation by Cus D'Amato, allegedly. All right? Just my opinion. Right? Molestation is a form of mind control. If you ever notice the great affinity that Mike Tyson has for Cus D'Amato, like a mind control slave would have for their handler. All right? I mean, he talks about Cus D'Amato like he's God. Yes, he took him into the home. All right? But if you look at the manner in which Floyd Patterson or Tyson would express themselves, all right, you can just tell certain things if you studied the subject. But that's neither here nor there. That's another topic for another day.
You know, but I can't act like I had private conversations with him about that specifically. I mean, there's so many things that happened along his life, you know, that stand out.
What?
Good for you for being honest, because I'm sure that you never spoke to him about that.
We all know that your dad went through a lot of racism then. It doesn't necessarily stop, and a lot of it is here present day. And as we were discussing Cleveland, thinking about LeBron James and the comments he just recently made.
Here in LA.
Just this happened here in LA, with his home being vandalized with a racial slur.
Allegedly. I'm gonna cover that later though. Allegedly vandalized with a quote unquote racial slur.
How did you think that LeBron handled that situation?
I thought he handled it well as far as the statements that he made. Because if it was me, I probably would have been, you know, I'm that one that might get a little ignorant sometimes. Then I'll come to my senses, but it'll be too late. I'll be out there.
Yeah.
But I thought he handled it really well and showed a lot of maturity, because we all know that, you know, there's still racism in this country, and it really doesn't matter how much money you have, how successful you are. There's certain people, if they're racist, they're going to still look at you a certain way and still feel like they're above you and still feel like they need to put you in your place.
Right.
And it happens on a regular basis. And, you know, it happened to LeBron. So a lot of people had the opportunity to see it, but it's not the first time, and it won't be the last, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, when it happens to somebody like LeBron, it should crystallize for people. Imagine how people with nothing or who haven't accomplished or achieved certain things are treated. That should be the real test.
Well, no, the real test should be for so-called black people to look at each other and say, if LeBron's going through this, maybe it's not meant for us to be seeking the approval of other people. Maybe we should be more worried about the things that are necessary for our own self-preservation, right? But we know that's not going to happen, because we know that most of you niggas just want the white man to give you a hug.
Let me tell you, my dad, growing up, one of the things that my dad always said, and I didn't understand it until I got older, no matter who was visiting him, it could be a prince from overseas or a president or some dignitary, whatever, they'd talk about how much they love you. We love you, Muhammad, you're so great. And he'd always say, come here, and he'd get in their ear and say, I'm still a black man. You know, and sometimes he would use other words, but he was always reminding people that no matter what, people still see me this way.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that he didn't think less of himself. It's just you have to be realistic about how other people see you. And I didn't.
Yeah, because he understood those people didn't really love him. They just loved what he accomplished. They loved what he represented, right, which is a champion. Everybody wants to be affiliated with a champion, right? Once you get on that level, it's like, it's so funny, man. Life is so funny. You know, people only want to be down with you after the result. They don't want to be down with you during the process. All right. That's why it's important for you to be focused on what it is that you want to accomplish and be single-minded, because while you're in the process of doing it, people are going to doubt you. They're going to try to diminish you. But once you get there, then they're going to try to jump on board. And Ali knew that very well. All right. So kudos to him for that.
Understand that until I grew up.
What would your dad think about Colin Kaepernick? Because over the last year, activism has really taken on a different level of conversation. A lot of references to your father, but the focus of it has been Colin Kaepernick's national anthem protest. What would your dad say about how he's handling it and really how the league is handling him?
He would think that what Ali would think would be dependent on what phase he was in his life. If you're talking about the Ali from 65 to 75, then he probably would have looked at Kaepernick and said, you know, he's just pro-black. He's confused. All right, he's walking around wearing African robes and holding up black power fists, and he's just confused. Those are the things that Ali used to say about those type of people back in the 60s and 70s, because this is why I give Ali the respect that I give him. At least he was trying to find a culture. All right. He wasn't there just trying to be a part of some super liberal bullshit movement where it's clear that you really just want the so-called white man's attention. All right. Ali actually said, I'm going to get down with this Nation of Islam thing. They have a methodology for worship, for belief. They have their own so-called history, version of history. They have a way that they say the woman is supposed to conduct herself, so on and so forth, right? The course that he took made logical, rational sense to a degree, all right? Because it entailed, it covered all the different bases that needed to be covered, all right? That's why I give him credit. All Kaepernick did was have an emotional response to something that was pretty much blown up a lot on social media. All right. And he's nothing but a pawn anyway, Kaepernick.
I can't just speak for my dad, but I would think that he would support him because, like me, my father and I both believe you should stand up for what you believe in, especially.
Now, the Ali, after 75, after 77, when Elijah Muhammad passed, he probably would have said something different. Ali became, and a lot of so-called pro-blacks don't acknowledge this, Ali became much of a globalist after Elijah Muhammad passed. All right. He received conventional Islam, which is just pure rock worship. All right. That's all that is worshiping a damn rock. OK. And a couple of his daughters married Caucasian men. A lot of people don't know that. More than one. All right. He had no control over his daughters whatsoever. And that's part of the curses of being behind enemy lines. All right. You see what the so-called Arab man and what the so-called Pakistani man does to his daughter when his daughter disobeys. All right. They have their daughters stoned. They have their daughters beheaded. No, that's real talk. That's what happens when their daughters disobey the orders of their father. All right. This woman sits here and brags about how she disobeyed her dad for pretty much her whole life.
It's for the good of all people. And I think that was definitely what Colin Kaepernick was trying to do. And he did put a lot on the line because obviously he knew, living in the world that we live in, that he's going to face some problems, right, by standing up for what he believed in. And I think we're seeing that now. Mm-hmm.
Colin made pretty clear that he doesn't even know what he believes in. All right. He pretty much made that clear. What he stated was that he was going to protest until the quote unquote injustices going on in this society of racism are handled. Well, that's not going to happen. That didn't happen. And that's never going to happen. Because when you're in prison, you can't look at the warden and say that you're not going to do the duties of an incarcerated man. You're not going to perform those duties until you get to live in a cell that's up to your standards and eat food that's up to your standards. No, you're going to receive what they give you. All right. So when the so-called black man understands that the issue is that he's behind enemy lines, and it's not that he should be demanding the approval and the love of the people that most of you so-called pro-blacks call your oppressor. When you stop seeking equality from people that you claim are your oppressor, then things will start to make much more sense.
Arguably whether he's, getting picked up or not. And I think he kind of slipped a little bit as far as, his game or whatever. I mean, I was asking my husband about that. I'm trying to prep, I'm like, man, what's going on with Colin Kaepernick? We might talk about that.
Yeah, that's the player you
Yeah.
In some regards.
Right.
He's still good enough to play.
Yeah, exactly. And he said there's other players who are getting picked up who aren't necessarily as good as him. So when you compare it that way, I don't know, but so I can't really speak on that. But I always supported him is in regards to just him standing up for what he believed in.
Our producer.
Well, why would you support somebody for just standing up for what they believe in? Shouldn't you support somebody for standing up for what they believe in as long as it's what you believe in? All right. That's part of like I tell you brothers all the time, man. The so-called black woman has three alters. She has three personalities. All right. Globalist, racialist, and feminist. Right. I'm going to support Colin Kaepernick for standing up for what he believes in. That goes into her globalist and racialist alters. All right. Why would you approve of somebody standing up for what they believe in if it's not what you believe in? Shouldn't it be I'm gonna support him for standing up for what I believe in because it's a mutual belief, right?
You don't want to knock me out. Laila Ali in a second. I can't let you go. What are your thoughts before we get to your book, Maymac? This possibility.
Oh Lord, do I have to talk about that? No, I'm just playing. I'm messing with you. No, it's okay.
No, you're not messing with them. You hate Floyd Mayweather. All right. You came out when Mayweather said that he was better than your dad, and you talked all that shit. You was running all on ESPN, talking all that stuff, and you know that Floyd Mayweather technically, as far as overall boxing skills, was better than your father. You know that, and the proof that you know that was that your trainer was Roger Mayweather when you were fighting. You didn't ask your dad to train you. You went to Roger Mayweather to train you because you knew what the truth was. Right? This is what it is. Right? Muhammad Ali was probably the most naturally talented fighter to ever fight. But anybody who knows and understands the sport of boxing knows that technically he was flawed. He couldn't stop the left hook. He leaned back from punches. He didn't go to the body. He had a style that was basically suited for youth. When he got older, he started to get hit a lot and hit hard and hit flush. All right? And that's one of the reasons why he ended up in the condition that he was in. Also, most likely, he was poisoned. But, I mean, that's another issue for another day. But she's always hated on Floyd Mayweather, at least for the last 4 or 5 years or so. But Floyd Mayweather is a guy who flagrantly has multiple women. And like I've stated, it's very obvious that this woman is a liberal black woman. Right? Once again, I managed to freeze it in the conventional pose of the liberal black woman, mouth open, spewing nonsense.
That honestly is not a fight that I want to see per se, because I just am a boxing purist, being a boxer myself, and I'm not into seeing people who aren't boxers come into the sport and try to fight one of the best fighters ever. Okay, I don't even think that he would fare well against some of the other guys that are, on the scene right now. I don't even think he could beat Manny Pacquiao, you know what I mean? So it's just like to jump right in and then try to fight. I get it, people do things for money, but I'm just not with that. I'm not one of those people who just goes with the okie doke, like, oh, this is what we're going to do.
Ain't you on this show for money right now to promote your book? Or are you on the show for fun? And Manny Pacquiao would definitely beat Conor McGregor. Manny would knock him out probably in 2 rounds. All right? Manny hits too hard. Conor wouldn't even see the punch coming. Plus, Conor holds his chin in the air.
But, I mean, if they fight, if they make it happen, hey, we'll see. I'll be watching. I'm not going to say I'm not going to not watch it.
Didn't you just say you wasn't interested? Now you're saying you're going to watch it. Which one is it?
But you're streaming from
Bro,
something.
I'll stop over somebody's house and chicken wings.
Yeah,
And bring
somebody
my
will
recipe.
You put like $3 or $4 on it and say, okay, I got it.
Your new book, though.
Yes.
It's in part a dedication to your father, correct?
It is. I didn't do the book just for him, but I dedicated it to him because I'm very passionate about fitness and wellness and health and nutrition and all of that.
And you're very passionate about making money, and his death has put you back into the mainstream media, and you're going to monetize that attention. All right? That's the real story.
My father and I both have a love for home-cooked meals. Some people rather eat out. We like home-cooked meals. I remember growing up, we always had a cook that could throw down in the kitchen, like home-style, southern, whatever. So I dedicated the book to my father.
Ali had a chef named Lana Shabazz. She was a sister in the Nation of Islam. She was one of the people who helped heal him when he had an issue in the early to mid-'70s. He had an issue with his hands. He had arthritis in his hands, and that's why he had a lot of issues in the mid-'70s. He wasn't getting many stoppages, meaning he wasn't getting knockouts. He wasn't stopping people because he had hand problems. He was getting arthritis in his hands. And she stopped cooking meat for him, and she started cooking mostly fish for him. And that allowed him not only to slim down. If you ever watch some of his fights in the mid-'70s, like when he fought the rematch against Norton, when he fought the fight against Rudy Lubbers, he was very slim. And that was because she was cooking mostly fish for him to help heal his hands. When she was cooking fish for him instead of the meat, the fish allowed the issues that he had with his hands to heal up. All right, it took away a lot of the inflammation.
And I was doing that even before he passed, and I put a recipe in there for him called the Ali burger, because growing up we would go to these burger stands. He used to order his burger the exact same way. So I put a recipe in there for him for that.
All right. Well, thank you for
check it out.
Yeah, thank you for coming through on it. Was probably going to be a very emotional weekend for you. Thank you for spending some time with us, and we'll see you soon. Sports Humanitarian Awards. You are the host of the 3rd annual ESPN Sports Humanitarian Awards. Oh, Green's with a lucky guy.
Yeah.
That's July 11th right here in LA. So we'll see you again soon.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Oh, so she gets to host the Humanitarian Awards off of her dad's death. So fortunately for her, she's still able to make herself famous or make herself prominent off of his name. Isn't that something? All right. That's one of the main problems that these so-called black men and so-called black man to be her competitor, as opposed to accepting herself as his complement. Right? Life is very, very simple, brothers. It's not easy, but it is simple. All right. When people just accept who they are and what they're supposed to do, everything flows pretty smooth. All right. When you try to make things more complex than they need to be, it introduces problems that really shouldn't exist. All right. But anyway, peace.